So today we're at Andersonville Prison. Today is July 11th, 2014. And in paying tribute in my way for the sesquicentennial of the 14 months that this prison was open, we're visiting the site today to commemorate the execution of the 6 ringleaders of the groups called the Raiders. On July 10th, the sentence was passed that the 6 of the worst, the leaders, were convicted of the worst crimes and sentenced to death in a trial of military court-martial. And they were taken outside and held in protection by Henry Wirtz. And on the 11th, there was a set of gates like what you see up on the hillside. That's the north gate. And looking down across here to the south gate, you'll see these 2 pillars in front of us. That this is where the dead were normally left or taken from here to what was known as the dead house, where that circle of trees is behind us, where they were identified and eventually taken to the cemetery for burial. But the 6 that were escorted in here on this date, 150 years ago today, were William Collins, Charles Curtis, Patrick Delaney, Andrew Muir, initials W.R. Rickson, and John Sarsfield. And those 6 were brought back into the prison by Henry Wirtz and his guards, where off in the distance you'll see that post is where the gallows were erected. Captain Wirtz had supplied the lumber for them to build them. And the 6 were marched in. Now can you imagine, the population was 30,000 on this day. So to see the south, where the white posts are, you can see there was a wall there. And then looking up on the north slope, you can imagine all these guys here to witness the justice, in most eyes, to these ringleaders who were going to be executed and hopefully change the way things were within the prison walls. Like I said, the gallows were erected where this post was, where the post is. And from this location, nearly every foot of the prison would have been a prisoner that was watching. And you could see all the way up to the north edge, past the north gate. You have Providence Spring there in the distance. The creek that went across this whole bottom area was a standing cesspool. And the men were brought in here and turned over to the police force that was established by the prisoners called the Regulators. And Henry Wirtz, and I'm paraphrasing, he basically said, here are your prisoners that I have taken from you, and I've returned you in this condition as I received them. He turned and left, leaving these 6 facing their eternity. Father Peter Whalen gave them the last rites. They had a few last words. They were climbed up onto a haphazard gallows with 6 ropes hanging about 4:30, and then around 5 o'clock they were executed. Posts were yanked out from under them. And one of them, the rope broke. William Collins hit the ground unconscious. Water was thrown on him. He was brought back and immediately began pleading that it was God's intervention that he should live. Father Whalen was doing the same. But the Regulators thought that it wasn't divine intervention but a cheap rope, so they marched him up and hanged him again. The following day they were taken out to the cemetery and buried separately by the request of the other prisoners as a form of disgrace, and they are still in a separate area where they are the they're the only graves that do not receive flags on Memorial Day weekend, because they were officially discharged and court-martialed and were not considered soldiers at the time of their deaths. So anyway, this is Andersonville Prison, July 11th, 2014. 150 years ago, very close to this time, that these 6 left this earth.